Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Today's episode of the Visibility Factor podcast is brought to you by Amplify You, the ultimate program designed to unleash your full potential and amplify your success. Imagine having a personal coach cheering you on, guiding you through a journey of self-discovery, and helping you break free from those limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. That's exactly what Amplify You is all about. Whether you're a leader now or aspiring to be one, this program is your ticket to a more confident, empowered you. It's like having a supportive friend in your corner, encouraging you to dream big. It's about having the career success that you want and creating a life you truly deserve. Amplify You offers a unique experience to help you build the confidence to tackle any challenge life throws your way. If you're interested in learning more about the program, please visit susanmbarber.com and click on the menu item Programs. Are you ready to transform your life and your career? Let's make it happen. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. Today, I am thrilled to bring my guest to you, Angie Callen, and she is doing some great things, helping people with career change, job search, transitions that they're going through. And I know she's going to have a wealth of great ideas and suggestions for everybody. So welcome to the show, Angie.
Sue, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I am too. So let's just have you do a little introduction of yourself so that everybody knows a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So you gave a good little teaser. I own a company called Career Benders where we have kind of two arms. One is very much rooted in professional development and career services for professionals of all levels with a really heavy focus on kind of job search strategy and some career change. I focus primarily on the executive level and with engineers because I used to be one. And I have a couple other coaches who kind of take other specialties so that we've got a nice, well-rounded ability to serve. And then the other arm of the business is cropping up and gaining traction. And that is more business coaching for coaches. And I have found I love that. It's my passion. And in a way, I used to think that, my purpose was to be a career coach, but now I realize the purpose was to build that business so that I could understand the business of coaching and then help others grow theirs. So it's a nice, exciting duality that really all culminates in this idea or kind of my mission that is really to help people understand that they can and achieve thriving careers and amazing lives. You don't have to pick one or the other. You can have it all, whether it's business or whether it's employment. And that's really the common thread that we operate on, whether you are looking for a job or starting or growing a business.
Love that, because then you can help people throughout, the beginning, and then maybe as they transition into the next thing, right? So I would love to hear, let's jump right in. What are you seeing in the marketplace today? Because what most people tell me is, I'm applying for jobs, I'm not hearing anything. I'm applying for 1 million jobs, I'm not hearing anything. So what are you seeing?
So ironically, I'm going to tie this all into the name of your podcast, and that is that the visibility factor is real in the market right now. And it is kind of the key to unlocking exactly what you just said is very true. And that is that we are in a very competitive hiring landscape, especially for white collar, professional level jobs. The last year and a half, we've just been in a strange 5-year cycle because of the pandemic. And then the straw that broke the camel's back is that hiring frenzy that occurred largely in technology due to pandemic era innovations. And then a lot of those didn't pan out. And all of a sudden we experienced this year and a half of transformation in the tech industry that really rippled throughout the whole labor market in a way. And in my opinion, that was the level set of the 15-year hiring tear that market sector has seen. And now we're just in a new long-term climate. And some of the residual bottlenecks that came from large layoffs in 2023 are still kind of impacting those job searches and clogging up the application stacks. I think that's starting to wane a little, but the fact of the matter is that I think that we're in for, a longer than we'd like, very competitive market where job searches are no longer 6 weeks, they're 6 months. And that's the reality of it. And so what I usually tell people, because I have that conversation 7 times a day, so and really in my mind, it's setting realistic expectations and also setting yourself up to have options and runway. Because the worst thing you can do for yourself in a competitive hiring market is put your back up against a wall, because things are going to get tight really fast. And even though it's competitive, it's still very doable. It just is taking a little while, and you have to deploy a strategy. We are no longer in a sit down, apply to 100 jobs online, get 10 callbacks. One of those jobs will work out. You can play that game. You're just, you're going to be trigger happy on that apply button and get frustrated pretty quickly. And that's where the visibility factor, in my opinion, comes in, because it's deploying a multi-pronged approach to job searching that may include some online, but you're working to be visible in other ways. And it is that multi-pronged approach that helps people lead to success within what is a competitive landscape.
Mm-hmm. Well, you explained that wonderfully, because I can tell you're talking about it all day long. So most of the time what I'm hearing, so I'd be curious your perspective if this is true, is through networking conversations, talking to people that helping you get in the door. Is that the best approach right now?
What's really interesting is, despite all the conversations, and for any of you that have job searched in the last 5 to 7 years, you're going to, some of this is you're going to snicker at, for all of the ATS that's come on the scene and all the automations and the talk about AI, we still hire the old fashioned way. Humans hire humans. And I don't want to go so far as to say who is the key, because that's kind of the old way of seeing it, but it's really who knows you and who are you visible to. And one of the best things that you can do for your future professional development is build a network and nurture it, whether you actually need to leverage it at this exact moment or not. Because keeping that network warm means you don't ever have to go through the lift of the uncomfortable, I need you right now ask. They're kind of primed, they're ready, you have a relationship with them, because that is really where the value in job searching specifically is right now. Also where the value in potentially starting a business and building a clientele is, right? That network is kind of your net worth, which is a cliche term that is extremely accurate in this current climate. So it's not even just about like who can you get to know and who can get to know you, but it's really taking that inner circle of your bullseye of people that are already engaged with you, already know you, you've worked with, and leveraging those connections for other connections or for opportunities, because that's your best asset. Your Rolodex, for lack of a better term, is your best asset, even in 2024.
100%. I tell that to people all the time. When they call me, they'll say, hey, I'm looking for a role, blah, blah. I'll say, how's your network? Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's not that great. My internal one's okay, but that's not even that great either. And I'll say, that's like one thing you have to do always, no matter if you're happy at your job or not, you just have to keep doing it. So if somebody wants to reach out to someone in their warm network, but still feels a little bit uncomfortable with that, what do you tell people to say? Do you have any great ways to start the conversation on that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of just be a human. And I'll take what you just said one step further. People will say I don't have a network, but then they'll also follow that up with I hate networking. It feels disingenuous. It feels icky. It feels like I'm asking for help. And ultimately, I like to think about it as the following. Networking is either positive or neutral. It rarely is ever a negative. And in other words, shoot your shot is kind of it, because nobody's ever going to blacklist you from applications because you tried to reach out to someone. And so in my opinion, you only have things to gain. And if you get no response, it's probably because that person doesn't respond to anyone. It's really not a ding on you personally. They just don't necessarily get networking. Once you get networking, now you're in a climate where people are willing to support you and you're not looking for handouts anymore. And so where I recommend starting is changing your mentality on it. You are not asking for help. You are building relationships with people who have strategic value, but in their willingness to build that relationship with you, they are happy to help. Let them help. They're happy to. And the key to it is approaching it as a human looking to build a relationship. So there's lots of correlations between job searching and dating, specifically in interviews and very much in networking. And so sometimes I'll say to people, I'm like, do you take a ring in your pocket to a first date? And they'll look at me and laugh. And I'm like, okay, you're not going to message somebody that you don't know or you haven't talked to in 3 years and say, hey, been a hot minute. I see a job at your company. Want to refer me? That is how you don't network. And that's why networking feels icky, because a lot of times that's what we think we're doing. If you saw that person at an event, or you were at a wedding, or you were at an actual a professional networking event, and you saw somebody that you've known for a long time but haven't talked to in 3 years, and you like the company they work for, what would you say to them when you walked up? Hey, it's been a minute. How have you been? What's new? Do the same thing virtually, right? It's really the same. Casual, short. You don't have to dump an anthology of everything that's been going on in one message with attaching your resume and overwhelm them. They won't respond. Conversation starters that are casual, high level, and sound human. Hey, so-and-so, it's been a few years since we chatted. I'm out on the market and I'm just talking to people to see what's going on. I'd love to catch up. So they have some context, but it's not intimidating. It's not scary. You're not asking for a handout. You can catch up, and through the catch up, the actual asks come out, but it's not what you lead off with.
Yeah, I think that's the scary part. There's a lot of fear of someone's going to be judging me, well, or maybe a little shame too. I don't have a job. I've gotten let go. I feel bad about that. I think there's all of those feelings that kind of rise up to the surface whenever someone's going through this. I know you probably talk about mindset just like I do. Is there anything else that they can do to help themselves just jump into this? I know your style would be that way, but if they're more introverted potentially or struggling with that.
Yeah, I actually said this to a client yesterday who is a more introverted engineer. And I don't have empathy for introverts, but I do have sympathy and compassion for those who are not as extroverted as I am. And because I work with a lot of engineers, I tend to actually coach that personality quite a bit. And that person, and engineers specifically, also have the additional layer of being hyper analytical and overly detail oriented, and have the affinity to share too much of that because of that personality type. Don't overthink it. From a mental, emotional, and even tactical perspective, don't overthink it. So I said this to a client yesterday. He's like, oh, I've got these 3 people I really want to reach out to. Here's how I know them. And I just don't know how to start the conversation. I'm like, just reach out and say, hey, we haven't chatted for a while. Let's catch up. And he was like, mind blown, right? It's just that simple. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice because it is human to human, right? And I think that is the other piece of it is there's the networking that people think about in a big group of people, but there's also just the one-on-one conversations. And I think for introverts, it's a little easier to do one-on-one conversations anyway. So yeah, take her advice because it's just so much simpler than I think we're overthinking it and putting fear in the way of just having a conversation.
I'll add, that's the nice thing about the ability to network virtually and leverage something like LinkedIn is, even as somebody who's extroverted and loves to work a room, if I'm job searching and I walk into a big open-ended networking event with 100 people, I don't know who's there. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to work that room to my advantage. It's just too random. And the intimidation factor is high because you're just like, I got to start somewhere. Versus the ability to be hyper targeted and strategic with who you reach out to. And that automatically leads to the one-on-one setting that can be a lot more comfortable and, less whoa factor than in-person networking.
Yeah. So then the other question I get a lot, and I'm sure you do too, what should I put on my resume? How many pages is the right amount? All of those questions that I'm sure people also have questions about.
The one-page resume debate can just die a slow and painful death. It has been, no offense to anybody out there who works in college career services, but it is somehow beaten into our heads at that stage of our very early stage of our professional development, and then becomes just the Bible truth for the rest of our careers, even if they're 30 years gone. And resume trends have changed, and they actually changed again in the last 2 years because of the competitive nature of the market. And all of that has shifted that core length of the resume question. So when it comes to that myth, you no longer need a one-page resume, but you don't necessarily not have a one-page resume. I have executives I've written resumes for that get a one-page, and I've had new college grads who get a page and a half because they have that much internship experience. The current hiring and resume trends lend towards more content because of the fact that technology is now involved. And there's the whole keyword thing, which you got to be careful not to go too far with, but you've got to give those systems enough to work with. And humans want the story where we're showing them what we did, how we carried it out, and the accomplishments that came with. You can't really effectively do that in one page if you've had more than one job. And in shoving stuff into one page, now you're either omitting all white space that makes your resume scannable by a human, or you are cutting off content critical to the story. So the overarching piece there, and this is hard to do for yourself, everybody. So if you're sitting there going, I still don't even know what you just told me to do, Angie. It is you have to draw the line between what is essential versus what is important, because important doesn't even make the resume. That goes to the interview. What is essential to letting someone know you are worth talking to? Because the purpose of a resume is not to get you the job. It's to get you the interview. So you don't need it to be a full career anthology. You need it to be a representative marketing document that tells the story of your value proposition to the audience that you are appealing to. And if you can do that effectively, the computer won't matter. The human will find you compelling, and then you will be able to get there and tell the rest of the story in person.
Love that. So then are you seeing then that people are, let's just say they heavily weight their resume with the right keywords and all of that, the number of people who are applying is huge. And so maybe just talk a little bit about ATS.
Applicant tracking systems. It's essentially, it is a fancy 3 letters to say database. And there's a lot of assumptions and misconceptions around how they work. It is essentially an abyss that a bunch of zeros and ones from your resume in binary data go into. And the system is either designed to scan and parse your data for certain queries. It has been set to parse right up front. Or what's even more common is it goes into that database and then a human decides how to query the database. That's all it is. So the easiest way I've ever found to explain how ATS works is SEO, Google. Because even if you don't understand SEO, you search on Google. And if you have keyword optimized your resume enough for an ATS to like it, you land on the first page of Google. If you haven't done that, you're going to land on the 14th page of Google. What does that mean? It means you still exist in Google. Do you ever look at the 14th page? So it's not like it's booting you out of the system. It's just not positively parsing you into a group that's going to be reviewed by humans. But if you go overboard there, then the human's going to read it and go, holy cow, this is like so gobbledygook. I'm like, this isn't a human that I want to hire. So there's definitely a little bit of a dance there that you have to appeal to multiple different readers within one audience. You may have a computer filter. You may have a recruiter who's looking at your resume for 6 seconds and looking almost the human version of that same query. And then you're going to have a hiring manager who reads it in more detail to see what you've done and how that aligns with the needs.
I mean, there's so many pieces to it now that are just so different, especially for people who are coming out of a job that they've been at for maybe 16 years. And now it's like, nothing works the same as I knew it to work before. So I have no idea where to go with this.
Yeah. And don't feel bad about that. I've talked to a lot of people, especially even tech people who have job searched and changed jobs and, prior to 2 years from now, from today, who will call me and they'll be like, Angie, I'm a CTO with 20 years of experience and I don't know how to find a job. I know how to get a job. I don't know how to find a job. And so don't feel bad about that because the climate has changed to the point where everyone, even highly sought after candidates, need to have a strategic approach and an intentional approach to job searching because the chances of just being kind of accidentally found are much lower than they used to be. And so you need to kind of take some control over that.
Yes. Would you give someone who's just getting started, what would the top 3 things be for them to do?
One, have very clear goals for your job search. Lack of clarity is more detrimental to a job search than a bad resume. That will be on my gravestone when I die. I say it all the time. And part of that is because we're in such a competitive landscape. And this has been the case for the last 5 to 6 years around this like storytelling and appealing to the audience is really showcasing your value to that particular role. So you've got to have clear goals so that you can, too, align your personal brand to them. And your personal brand is your resume, your cover letter, and your LinkedIn profile, at least from an application perspective. It's also who and how you network with and how you interview. But to simplify it, have tailored documents prepared that are aligned with the clarity and the goals that you have for the search. Those are the first two things. And then the third thing is I tell everyone to start their job search by reaching out to 5 people they actually know. I don't tell them to go now. That's the strategy now. You know, it used to be, let's build the routine around applying online because there was some level of success to be had with that. I make that secondary and I'm like, go start with your 5 best contacts. So clarity, strong personal brand aligned with the clarity, go talk to the first 5 people you think of.
Yeah, I love the clarity word. I've been using that a lot with people too, because there are so many options and they're just a little overwhelmed. And I said, people can't help you find a job. You know, like other people in your world can't help you if you're not clear about what it is you want, because you need to give them some guidance. You know, I'm looking for an accounting role. I'm looking for this type of role. I'm looking for this kind of company or industry. The guidance to other people to help you is so important, but there's a lack of clarity, I would say, in most people when they're getting started, just because it feels overwhelming to them.
Absolutely. And again, even if you've had the same job and you're going to go for a similar job, there's still an exercise in clarity there. What level? What titles are they called? What types of company are you going to resonate best at? What makes you unique in that space against other people who have similar experience, right? There's more work and deep dive there. We mean like a hyper level of clarity around what you're seeking and how you are uniquely qualified and positioned to be appealing for it.
So the other last question I had around this piece, and then I want to jump into your other side of your business, is interviewing is one of the most challenging things I think people have for themselves, because it's talking about yourself and your success and all of that stuff. So is there any top tips that you give to people in terms of preparing for interviews?
To bridge off of what we were talking about around kind of the clarity piece, that has to roll with you across everything that you talk about. And it starts with those informational interviews and being an advocate for yourself when you go out to your network. So when you reach out to those 5 people, the worst thing you can do is say, hey, I'm looking for my next role. Let me know if you hear anything. And I bet you every single one of you listening out there went, oh, crap, I do that. You need to be an advocate, and you have to create an actionable way to reach out and allow people to help you. You have to tell them how you want to be helped. And so that's a really important connection across all this, because then they know what to do with you. Sorry, you're the only one who has your life and job at the top of your mind. And that's the case whether it's your best friend who's going to help you find a job, or whether it's the recruiter facilitating your interview. And you just have to keep that in mind. And it's not because people don't care. It's just because, well, we all got a lot of what to do. So when it comes to the interviewing piece, one, right now, something I'm telling people is to be prepared for longer, more stages of an interview within one process than we've ever seen. And the likelihood of you having to go through multiple interview processes for multiple roles is much higher than it's ever been. What I'm seeing is that because there are so many candidates in pools, recruiters can screen more candidates, which means more attrition between screen and first round. But that probably also means they're taking more people to a first round interview than they normally would, because there are more who are qualified, which means more are going to fall out. So more people are getting to the final stage of interviews and then not getting the job than I've ever seen. And that can feel really, really demoralizing and can knock your confidence. Just know that the silver lining there is the one that you cross the finish line with is going to be the right fit, because that's also the trend I'm seeing. And if you have done all these things well, you know how to position yourself, you're clear on what you want, you know the culture that you're going to fit in, you know how to articulate all that as you go through the interview, and you pair that with being the solution that the company is looking for in that role, and you know how to articulate that through every single stage of your interview, that's how you're going to cross the finish line.
Love that. And She has an amazing newsletter that she sends out that talks about the career, the economy, all that stuff. So your website's careerbenders.com, correct?
Yeah, we send out I think if I knew what I knew now about all the careers available that weren't available 25 years ago when I was deciding on what to go, quote unquote, be when I decided to be an engineer, I would be a behavioral economist because it appeals to my analytical love of numbers, but the psychology of it all is so fascinating, which is why I really enjoy looking at like the labor economy and digging in at a more micro level of what's going on. Because if all you do is just look at, oh, this many jobs were created, or oh, this many jobs were created, you're going to do what the stock market did a few weeks ago, and you're going to react. When if you took a step back and looked at the next level of detail there, you would realize it's not just the number of jobs, it's where and what type of jobs are being created. To be nerdy about it, a year ago when we were having, or even 6 months ago, when there were 250,000 jobs and tech people would be like, why can't I get an interview? It's because those jobs were all hourly workforce, hospitality, government type work. And now there's half as many jobs. And I got tech people with interviews coming out the wazoo because that's who's hiring. So you really have to look at market sectors and what the numbers are doing, which is kind of what I unpack in that newsletter. So thanks for that little shout out.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. So I would definitely recommend getting that. It'll give you some insights that you may not be able to get for yourself. And Angie's nerding out on it, so you can take advantage of her experience with that. Yeah, I think the other question I just want to ask you real quickly, are you seeing still shifts where like the more recent generations are talking about going away from college, going into more blue collar roles than probably we've ever seen in the past, so many years? Is that still a trend you're seeing too?
I that definitely was a trend over the last, 3 to 5 years. And I think there's still some aspect of that, and impacted by the fact that trades are screaming for people. And also, I am very proud of my education, and I value traditional education very highly. I come from a teacher's home, and so that impacts it. So I want to make sure I say that before I follow up with, we're likely shifting into an overall professional landscape where traditional education is a challenge because the workforce and the digital age is progressing things too quickly for a lot of traditional education to keep us relevant. For instance, if you have a computer science degree, nothing that you learned in 1996 is applicable to microservices, architecture, AWS, and Kubernetes today. It's just not. And so because of that, that's where like alternative education, boot camps, certifications, additional training actually does have viability because companies are becoming a little bit more accepting of it. So in a way, I think there's a big picture there that supports some of that attrition from traditional education that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. But I actually do think that's rebounding some. And I think that colleges are now seeing because there was some challenges there for a while where colleges and universities were seeing really low application rates and there was like a high level of risk there. I think that is rebounding just a little bit. And I want to say maybe higher ed has found a way to keep themselves and make themselves more relevant to that kind of long-term, faster changing pace of work and learning. And I also think that younger people are seeing the value of that again, whereas there was a period of time where maybe they didn't see that. And all the student loan stuff you hear about also kind of creates some fear there. So I think it still exists. I think it's not quite as prevalent as it was maybe for the last 3 to 5 years.
So let's transition into the other side of your business, Angie. I'd love to hear what you're doing for coaches to help them build their businesses.
So if you think I have lots of opinions and get fired up about job searches and career and professional development and the career economy, you just opened a can of worms. Because what I realized through growing my own, I guess, successful, it feels egotistical to say that, but we're just going to use that word, business, is that I am really passionate about helping coaches do the same because we can have more impact that way. And I find a lot of coaches come into the coaching world, regardless of discipline, with a heart and a mission to serve, which is exactly what they should be doing, right? That's why you do this work, is because you do have a heart for it. However, if you don't also build business acumen and treat it as the entrepreneurial endeavor it also is, your business will only grow to a certain extent, which limits not only your own personal financial abilities as an entrepreneur, but it also limits the impact we can have. So the stronger business you build, the more you can serve and the more you can actually carry out the mission that brought you into this at the very beginning. And I find most coaches don't have that natural acumen. And I came into coaching looking at this more as a business and an entrepreneurial opportunity, knowing that's what I wanted to do and that coaching was something I had a propensity for. And all of that came together into really loving the intricacies and the unique ways coaches can build businesses around their specialty, who they want to serve, and the unique intellectual property they bring to it. And that's where then again, the engineer nerd puzzle builder comes out in me and goes, ooh, how do we take all of that and put it together into something that really appeals to who you want to serve and becomes a solution for them? And so that's where I really focus on the business coaching, is taking coaches who, are 0 to 1, right? They want to start and have to figure it out. But even more so, people that have a foundation and they've proven their concept, and now they're like, okay, how do I build this into like 6 figures, for instance, and figuring out how we maximize all of the assets that they've built.
Yeah, I think that's the group too, right? That they come in wide-eyed and excited. And, in coaching schools, they don't really teach you about how to start a business. So they teach you a lot about coaching, which is great. I think I had one 4-hour class that said, here's how to start a business. I was like, that's not really enough. So thank goodness I've run into a lot of people and I came from business, which is great. But I think that is a scary thing too for coaches, because they do want to focus on helping clients. And it's hard to pull yourself into two, right? To focus over here on clients and to also pay attention to what's happening in your business. So there maybe top 2 or 3 tips you would give to a coach to start to think about from their business standpoint.
One of the first things I do with either somebody who's new and wanting to start or somebody that's already in business is I bring it all back to who are you serving and how do you want to serve them? Because I find a lot of times we kind of start at step 3, but all roads end up leading you back to who am I serving and what do I want to serve? So we say, I want to be a career coach and I'm going to do this kind of work. I'm going to write resumes and help people job search. Or I want to be a health coach and I want to help with nutrition and fitness plans. Or I want to be a life coach and I want to help, people have better quality of life, right? We start with the what do I want to help instead of who is it for and how does that look? Sometimes we can call it the scary 5-letter word, the niche, but there's lots of misconceptions around the niche. But for lack of a better term, bringing it all back to who is at the heart of your work, because then you can create messaging and solutions and programs and offerings and services that really align. It's almost very similar to our conversation around clarity in a job search. Isn't that funny? All the parallels. And getting hyper clear so that you can develop a business brand and an entrepreneurial brand that aligns with them so that they understand how you're going to help them with their nutrition and fitness, how you're going to help them with their quality of life. And I think that is becoming increasingly more important in the coaching space because the coaching industry is growing at a very, very fast rate. It's expected to grow a 5x by 2030, which is intimidating. I'm a numbers economy person. It can be intimidating if you're sitting here going, oh man, there's a lot of competition come in, but that also means there's demand. And the best thing you can do to set yourself up to take advantage of that demand is know exactly who you serve and be visible to them. Keep coming back to that common theme too.
And yes, thanks for that plug. Yeah, I think it's very important. And it's the hardest thing, I think, because when you first get started, people will come to you and say, well, I'd like to get coaching. Could you help them? Probably, right? But are they really the people that light you up? And I think that's the point of clarity, because even though there's a lot of people who talk about niching in coaching and feel scary to niche down when there's so many people, there's 8 billion people on the planet to help, right? But how can you focus specifically? I think most people would look at me and say, she's known for visibility now, right? But that was not true in the beginning. I would have helped any person who came along at that moment.
Same. There's a reason I have worked with 2,500 clients is because if you needed a job, I was going to help you, which was good to some extent because it helped me then figure out where I really wanted to focus and who I worked best with. It helped you figure out, okay, now I know my common theme is really around this visibility thing. So there is something to be said with keeping options open, but you have to be careful to not keep them too open. Because if you try to appeal to 8 billion people on the planet, you're going to be nothing to no one. You've all heard that phrase, right? You try to be everything to everyone, you're going to be nothing to no one. And one of the things that I tell coaches that tends to really make the little eyeballs get big is what a niche is and what it is not. And this is, I think, why there's fear around it. A niche is who you put your effort and focus into attracting because you have determined it is a good group of people with which to serve, either because it is who you want to serve, who you get along with, you have empathy and a background and an understanding and personal experience that aligns, right? Whatever I would say the parameters are of identifying that group of people, that's the niche that you put your effort and messaging to so that it's focused and they can understand it and you're not diluting it. But what's going to happen is people outside of that bullseye are going to also be attracted to the messaging. And even though they are not the bullseye, quote unquote, niche you defined, it doesn't mean you turn them away. So a niche is who you put your effort and focus into attracting. It is not a statement of exclusivity on who you serve. So if I say, this is an easy example, and I am not one of these, but it's an easy example. If I am a professional development coach for women, and homeboy calls me and says, hey, I came across your site. I love what you're doing. I don't go, sorry, you're a dude. Go pound sand. Mm-hmm. If I feel I am equipped to support him, he can come into the fold and we figure out how to engage because something about my message resonated with him. So the niche is not a statement of exclusivity on who you serve. It's just simply who you put your focus and your effort, your energy, and your resources into attracting. And once you realize that, it becomes a whole lot less scary because people think, well, if I only target women, then I'm not going to have enough people. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case.
No, and I love that explanation. I think it's so clear just to think of it that way.
And these are all things that I did not know this 7 years ago. These are all things that, like, in hindsight, I was like, okay, I'm realizing how this works now. And so if you're new out there and you're like, oh crap, I didn't know this stuff. These are the things that evolve with you. Your niche will change, your focus will change, your capabilities will change. You know, I didn't work with a lot of executives when I was younger because I needed to build skills. I needed to build my confidence and I needed to build my wherewithal to be able to serve them and feel like I had the value to them. And so all of this stuff is not set in stone. It's simply finding a starting point that helps you build traction to grow your business and learn and then evolve over time.
We're all learning all the time, and we're just incorporating those new learnings in every single day to what we're doing. So, oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day, and I am excited to go on your podcast next because we're going to have a great conversation. So I want to transition us into the Rise Up and Be Visible quick tips. These are 4 questions that I ask every guest, and I'm excited to hear your answers. So what is visibility and why did you answer that way?
I always love when people are like, Angie, quick tips. I say nothing in 1 minute or less. Come on, Sue. To me, visibility is standing out in front of who you want to stand out in front of in the way you want them to perceive you.
Very good. See, that was very concise. You did it. What are the things you are doing to be visible?
I'm like putting on my little resume writer hat over here. Like, how do I say that in 3 less words? I am leveraging, LinkedIn is a very specific first thing that comes to mind as a platform of authority where I have built that visibility in front of the people I want to stand out in front of. And I am mixing up my media and the ways I leverage that platform to stand out in front of my audience in different ways. The second thing is I am owning my authenticity across all of my content. And I've realized how important that is just in general in the coaching space because it will attract the right people to you. But also as AI and the digital age just increase, I think it's even more important for us to be authentic and clearly human so that people can connect with us. I think we crave that. So, so being authentic, especially in the platforms where I stand out. And then the third thing I am doing is working on kind of my own development as an entrepreneur and challenging myself to create programs and different options and opportunities for the people that I know I want to serve.
Love that. What is the best career or leadership advice you've ever received?
I'm going to go back to something we talked about earlier, and that is once you start networking, never stop.
Yes, I think that's a very sound advice for everyone to take advantage of at this point in the world. And then last question is, what is a book you would recommend to the audience?
Oh, well, if you've gotten this sneak peek of the video, I only have over 100 behind me. I know, The Alchemist. I love The Alchemist. It's a quick read. I read it every year, and it's something you can read in a couple hours. But the reason I was going through like 3 other, and I'm like, do I give 2? One for entrepreneurs and one for career clients? But I think it's applicable to everyone, and you can take from it a couple different messages and however you read it. But it's really about setting goals and knowing and trusting that they are going to be realized.
Yes, I love The Alchemist. I read it, I don't know, probably 6 years ago. Yeah. So it's a good reminder for me to pick it up again and read it again.
Yep. I love when a book comes up like recurring. I'm like, well, I guess I got to go read that again.
Exactly. I thought I read it a while ago. Now I got to read it again. Well, I loved our conversation. Thank you for being here. Go check out her website. She also has an ebook for sale on her website if you are interested in that, and courses that she's offering. Anything else that you want to share with people?
Well, you mentioned you're going to be on my podcast. So every Monday morning at 10:15 Mountain, noon 15 Eastern. No More Mondays. It goes live on LinkedIn, and Sue's going to be on there just in a few weeks, hopefully. And so it's a great way to kick off your week, get some professional development advice, and hear some stories of people who have figured out how to have that thriving career and an amazing life at the same time. So it's a great, encouraging, positive way to start off your week. And since y'all are podcast listeners out there, I think it's a good thing to let everyone know.
Yeah, check it out. I'm very excited to do it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for us, and we have a lot of things in common. So we'll have a great conversation. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks so much for what you're doing out there in the world, trying to help people, get back into the workforce or find something new that really lights them up. I think that's so important. So, and helping coaches. I didn't know that was part of your business, and I think that's really fun too. So thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you so much, Sue.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.